responsible for my DNA gun on my door.
That's what we like to think too, brother, but that stuff doesn't lie, that stuff doesn't get made up.
Imagine being 91 years old, living peacefully in your home in Florida. You've spent your life being kind to others, especially the neighborhood kids. One of them is a 14-year-old boy named Jesse Stone, who everyone knows as Randy John. You've watched him grow up, taught him how to use your iPad, shared stories on your front porch. You thought you were safe. You never imagined that your kindness would be repaid with unimaginable horror. This is the stomach-turning case of Jesse Stone, and the latest update on his sentencing. The 911 call pierced through the quiet Florida night on June 9, 2024. A 91-year-old woman, her voice shaking, reporting a horrific SA. When deputies rushed to the scene, what they found was even more soul-crushing.
Okay, I'm up here in Reddick. I'm at a house. A 91-year-old lady calls in saying she was just we get on scene. She's beat up really bad.
Yeah, she wasn't just SA'd, but beat up, cut with a knife, and left for dead.
She's significantly injured in her face and got a big gash on her arm. She's 91 years old.
Try to put yourself in her shoes for a moment. You're sleeping peacefully in your bed in the home where you've felt safe for years. Suddenly you see a shadow moving towards you in the darkness. Before you can react, before you can cry out, violence erupts. The attacker's fists rain down on your face. You're 91 years old, but your survival instincts kick in. You fight back with everything you have, desperately trying to push off your attacker. In your moment of pure terror, you do what many of us would do. You pray. Dear God, please help me. You plead repeatedly. The response? A chilling command from your attacker. Shut up. Shut up. The brutality of this moment is almost impossible to comprehend. A woman in her 90s who should be safe in her own bed, fighting for her life against someone she had shown nothing but kindness.
We'll lock down the house. Once she gets out, we'll wrap it up. Okay. It's our crime scene. I got evidence coming, major crimes coming. Canine's coming.
Within minutes, an army of law enforcement descended on the scene. This wasn't just about this one heinous attack, it was about an entire community's safety. Dozens of officers, forensics teams, K-9 units, and investigators would spend countless hours and thousands of dollars hunting this monster. He had left an elderly woman beat and traumatized, and an entire neighborhood wondering if they could trust their own neighbors. But he made one crucial mistake. He underestimated his victim. Maybe he thought a 91-year-old woman would be too frightened or ashamed to report him. Maybe he thought a few punches would silence her. He was dead wrong. Despite the trauma she was just beginning to heal from, she found the strength to fight back and then to tell her story. Her courage would ultimately bring him to justice and leave an entire community in shock.
Feel okay?
I hope.
I mean, I've known this lady since I was 10 years old.
Okay. I mean, it appears somebody was over there messing with the house.
When the truth came out, it was almost too horrific to believe. The monster wasn't some unknown predator. It was 14-year-old Jesse Stone, known to his neighbors as Randy John, the same boy who had sat on the victim's porch just the day before, chatting with her, like he'd done so many times before. The boy she had helped and trusted, a red stain on his clothes caught investigators' attention. DNA testing would later confirm the unthinkable. This child had committed an act of evil. Watching the police interrogation footage is chilling. Here's Jesse Stone, just 14 years old, sitting with his grandmother, his primary caregiver, as detectives confront him with evidence.
Jesse, I'm going to ask you some questions that might seem a little bit weird, but this is just to help me understand and to make sure that I'm on the same page as you. So, do you understand the difference between a truth and a lie?
Yes.
Here was a detective having to break down the concept of truth and lies, a conversation you'd typically have with a young child, to someone who had just committed an unthinkable act of brutality. It shows the horrifying duality of this case. A perpetrator young enough to need the most basic concepts explained to him, yet capable of committing one of the most depraved acts imaginable.
The truth is what actually happened.
Okay. What's a lie mean?
Something that's made up or not true.
At this point, Detectives had already found his DNA in places that shattered any possibility of innocence. They knew they had the right person, they just had to get him to confess.
That night, so when I showed you that video of you walking, so that would have been late Saturday night.
Yes.
Do you remember everything that you did that night?
Yeah, I couldn't go to sleep, so I got up and I headed down the road to watch the cars start coming from the concert.
When the detective asked Jesse if he'd seen his 91-year-old neighbor that day, he said yeah, but earlier in the day.
Where was she at?
On the front porch, sitting in her rocking chair in front of the door.
Okay, gotcha.
Jesse claimed he would see her every few weeks and they would say hi to each other. Obviously, he was not ready to tell the truth, but he did say this.
When you were younger, you used to go over and talk with her quite a bit.
Yeah, I'd go over, talk, help her.
Sheesh. To think how he violated that trust. Now the detectives just had to explain to him that she had his DNA in all the wrong places.
He sent your DNA and the sex kit up to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, who does testing and stuff like that.
Okay.
Okay, is there any reason at all that your DNA would be on her clothes?
Yeah, we hugged. When I said goodbye to her, we hugged. Like a slight hug.
Okay.
That's...
Let me be a little bit more specific. Your DNA was on her underwear.
What?
And so I want you to really use this time here to be honest with me about what happened that night.
But Jesse lied for several more minutes.
It's impossible for my DNA to be on her underwear.
Maybe this just shows how young he is. So young and immature that he thought even with DNA evidence, he could lie his way out of it and go unpunished.
That's what we like to think too, brother, but that stuff doesn't lie, that stuff doesn't get made up.
While the detective was explaining to Jesse that he would still be a good person if he would admit to his mistake, the other detective showed him, and his horrified grandma, photos of the 91-year-old. Watch his reaction.
Holy cow!
So they left the two of them alone in the interrogation room, and it proved effective.
Personally, I can't believe that this is a horrible thing with you, John. That's a horrible thing.
I don't even have the ability to do that. I wasn't at her house.
Ready, John? It's across the street. Look at her. Look at her. Look at her face.
What came out next was enough to make your skin crawl. Jesse had been watching porn since he was just 10 years old, literally a 4th grader.
So is that something I heard you taking Grandpa's phone and taking a look at that?
No, I don't do it on Grandpa's phone. I haven't been able to do it since I had a computer because she takes everything away.
And here's the thing that'll make your blood boil. His own father introduced him to it.
And I'll admit, he got introduced to video actually from his father, and that happened when he was in the 4th grade.
Let that sink in. While other kids his age were watching cartoons and playing video games, Jesse was being exposed to content that would warp his young mind. But don't get it twisted, this isn't just some sad story about a kid who saw things he shouldn't have. This teen made the conscious choice to brutally attack someone who had only ever been good to him.
What we're trying to figure out is Randy John the kind of guy that breaks into people's houses with axes and chops them up into pieces and leaves them and murders them? Or did Randy John just make a mistake?
That's when Jesse cracked. He broke into his neighbor's house and watched on her iPad, frustrated that his grandma had cut all access to computers for this exact reason. Then he got another idea, a much, much worse idea. And when she tried to fight him back, he panicked and hit her harder.
I don't intend to hurt anyone.
During his February 2025 trial, things got even more twisted. Jesse's grandma, the woman who raised him when no one else would, sat there in court trying to defend the kid she thought she knew.
He really, even now, he worries about her. You know, he does genuinely care about her, and this was, he doesn't understand why he did it.
She even brought up this time when 5 people jumped him and 1 girl attacked him from behind. Know what he did? Pulled his punch the second he realized it was a girl. Like, who even was this kid? And yeah, the signs were there all along that something was seriously messed up in Jesse's head. This kid, who used to be straight up good, started lying about everything, stealing, acting wild. Then, one day, he drops this bomb on his grandma that'll break your heart. Why does my mother hate me so much? According to his grandma, Jesse's mother had narcotics problems, and she wasn't really there for him. And when it comes to his dad, let's just remember this is the guy who introduced him to when he was 10. Imagine being so young and carrying this kind of pain. But while trauma explains behavior, it doesn't excuse it. And what he did next is the kind of evil that makes you lose faith in humanity. The prosecutors painted a grim picture. This wasn't some kid snapping and doing something crazy. This was calculated serial killer type behavior. This boy went into her house multiple times that night. The prosecutors also revealed the kind of stuff that he was watching on her iPad just before. It was elderly women content. Yeah, let that mess with your head for a minute. He was literally researching his crime before he committed it. And the attack itself is nightmare fuel. He held a pillow over her face, pressing down so hard she could have died. And when she fought back, he tried to tie her up, covered her mouth so no one could hear her screams. And then, this is what shows you exactly what kind of monster he is. He flipped her onto her stomach so he could have what he called complete control and power over her. The prosecution asked for 30 years. Jesse's defense asked for half, saying this.
His brain was nowhere near fully developed when this incident happened and is still probably 10 years off from that being the case. He had a relatively difficult childhood. He had no father figure in his life whatsoever, and certainly none of this is an excuse or a justification by any means for what happened. He is remorseful about what happened. You've heard testimony about that. We believe that that indicates that he would be amenable to supervision as well as specialized sex offender treatment. As the state points out, he does suffer from depression and ADHD.
The judge understood the gravity of this evil act, though.
It's a burglary of a dwelling with a battery, which is punishable by up to life in prison. You're adjudicated guilty and sentenced to 25 years in the Department of Corrections.
25 years in prison, followed by 30 years of sex offender probation. He'll be 39 when he's released, but for his victim, the sentence doesn't erase the trauma, the fear, or the betrayal. Try to imagine the psychological devastation. This woman had opened her heart and her home to a neighborhood kid. She had taught him to use her iPad. She had sat with him on her porch just the day before the attack. The prosecutor noted that the victim has struggled tremendously to process what happened to her. How could she not? The hands that she thought would help her in her golden years were the same hands that inflicted unimaginable violence upon her. Yet, Margaret Douglas's family would call this 91-year-old woman lucky. As horrific as this attack was, she survived to see her attacker face justice. Margaret Douglas wasn't even given a chance. In April 2018 in Wadsworth, Ohio, 98-year-old Margaret Douglas was living peacefully, just like our Florida victim. She was known for her kindness, her open door, and her welcoming nature too. She had survived the Great Depression, World War II, and nearly a century of human history. She was so close to turning 100, a milestone she'd been excitedly looking forward to. But one night, a 17-year-old neighbor named Gavin Ramsey decided to steal that dream from her. Like Jesse Stone, he lived just down the street. Like Jesse Stone, he betrayed the trust of an elderly woman who had shown nothing but kindness to her community. But Ramsey took his depravity to even more outrageous steps. He broke into Margaret's home, found her sleeping on her couch, and when she woke up screaming, he strangled her to death. But death wasn't enough for him. He spent over 2 hours in her house afterward, filming himself doing unspeakable things to her body.
Oh my God.
The only reason he finally left was the need to get home before his mother woke up at 5 a.m. to check on him. When the police searched his phone, they found a locked folder titled Dark. The password? Murder. Inside were videos of him stalking Margaret, watching her sleep through her window, and documenting his crimes. Under his bed, they found journals filled with his dark fantasies about killing, plus gushing over serial killers.
All the phones contain images of Margaret before and after her death, as well as videos of your son with her.
Just like Jesse, Gavin lied through his teeth about this incident until he was cornered by detectives and his mom.
Honesty is always what's best.
I'm not holding anything back. Like,
you've already gotten yourself in trouble, so.
I know, and I don't even. I don't know what to say.
Is there more? Because you know it all
comes
out.
It's not that there's anything more. It's what the fuck, dude.
When he did confess, this was all he had to say.
I'm sorry. I think I broke my hand through my pinky. I didn't even care. I was just mad because I finished my test in math, and then I saw a text from that said the cops had me. So I'm like, great.
He'd left someone dead and a community in shambles, yet he was still complaining about his own situation. Today, Margaret's family lives with a horrifying reality. Due to changes in Ohio law regarding juvenile offenders, Ramsey could be eligible for parole by 2043, when he is just 42 years old. As Margaret's great-niece testified, had he not been caught, I have no doubt that he would continue to escalate his crimes and continue killing. He used my aunt as a warm-up, so to speak. The two elderly women, both beloved in their communities, both attacked by teenage neighbors, they had no reason to fear. Cases like these will haunt everyone involved forever. The victim, whose kindness was repaid with cruelty, the grandmother who watched the boys she raised become a monster, the community whose sense of safety was shattered, the investigators who had to piece together this nightmare. Look, I know this is heavy stuff, and yeah, maybe it makes you want to lock your doors and never trust anyone again, but that's not the answer. The answer isn't to stop being kind. The answer is just to be smart about it. Sometimes monsters turn out to be the kid next door who helps you carry your groceries. So what do? We stay alert. When you see someone acting sketchy around vulnerable people, say something, because maybe no one else is seeing it. And let's take one final moment to realize that this 91-year-old woman didn't just survive. She made sure Jesse couldn't hurt anyone else. She said, "Not today," to evil. And she won. She's not just some victim in a news story. She's a warrior who looked evil in the face and said, "You picked the wrong one." That's the kind of energy we need to protect each other. That's the kind of strength we need to remember when things get dark. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. What are your thoughts on this case? Could Jesse's crimes have been prevented? What can we do if we see someone's behavior is off? Leave a thoughtful comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe before you leave. Catch you soon.